Oh, of course there's a way for it to move forward. I think what they've done is tick the two prominent boxes, and they're the Pacific Solution and TPVs, and good on for that. But, you know, it's important to bear in mind that there's a few other things that need to be cleared out of the way if we can really say, look, we're there.
And,
yes.
and what are they?
Okay, first of all, the Bridging Visa E. I mean, the idea of the Bridging Visa E, it's a monstrous idea that a person can be released into the community but forbidden to work and forbidden to get access to Centrelink or Medicare. How the hell are they supposed to survive? It's inhuman to imagine that a person can be thrown onto the streets and left to fend for themselves but not allowed to work or have social welfare of any sort. I don't know, I've never heard anyone justify such a visa, and I think it's really important that the community not lose their passion. I mean, you know, here we are, the Usual Suspects Club, and very comforting it is to get together again. Don't lose the passion for getting rid of the Bridging Visa E. It's outrageous. Among my sort of favourite documents I've collected in my chambers is one which was given to a bloke who was in Maribyrnong, and it says, you know, you've been given a Bridging Visa E on the following conditions. 1, you mustn't work. 2, you mustn't undertake a course of study. 3, you're not eligible for Centrelink or Medicare. 4, you must make immediate steps to repay the sum of $241,000 being the cost of your detention. What sort of nightmare is that? What bureaucratic fool thought that this was a sensible thing to give to anyone? You know, it's easy to laugh about it, but what is it like for him? One of the blokes, I mean, you didn't mention the case of M38, there's this comforting notion that the Convention Against Torture and the ICCPR stops people from being sent back to a place where they'll be tortured. M38 was a case which went all the way to a special leave application in the High Court. The pleading was simple. He'd failed his refugee claim. He said, they threatened to not only remove me from Australia, but to send me back to Iran, which is the one place in the world where I'm likely to be tortured or killed. So, send me out if you want, but not to Iran. The government argued all the way to the High Court. They said, that's legal nonsense. We'll assume that you will be tortured or killed. Nevertheless, we have the right to send you there. And at every level of the court system, they succeeded in that argument. Okay, so Australia's official position, at least as of a couple of years ago, is we will send people back even to the certainty of torture and death. All that matters is that they failed in their refugee claim. That bloke, by other circumstances, ended up staying here. He's living in Ballarat, I think, or Bendigo, and he's paying off his detention costs at $125 a month with help from the community. He worked out it's going to take him 170 years to pay off his debt. Now there's a good way to encourage a good, productive member of the community. So we've got to get rid of Bridging Visa E, we've got to get rid of detention costs. We are the only country on the face of the earth that charges innocent people the cost of locking them up. Next, Christmas Island. 3 things are bad about Christmas Island. The first is that it's a really long way away, and it's the most expensive place to detain people. If detention is necessary for any purposes, make it somewhere closer and less expensive. Second, because it's a long way away, it's very difficult for people held there to get access to the range of legal help that they're entitled to and which they would get more readily if they were in Villawood or Maribyrnong. And third, it makes it very difficult for them to get the sort of community support which undoubtedly sustained a lot of the asylum seekers over the years that they were in detention up until recently. The next thing that I would want to do, little matter of GSL. Private prison operators should not be doing the government's dirty work. If we have to have mandatory detention, let's have the government running it, and let's have the government being directly liable for the consequences of running it badly. Let's not fragment the responsibility by hiving it off to a series of commercial operators whose real expertise is in running jails, and even that they don't do terribly well. Next, the Refugee Review Tribunal. If there are any members of the Tribunal here, forgive me if I'm critical. The Refugee Review Tribunal, in my view, is a deeply flawed system that ought to be scrapped. It needs to be made genuinely independent. At the moment, people are appointed there for a relatively short time and they can be reappointed or not, depending on the good favour of the government. That was used poisonously under the last government. It has the potential to be abused under this government. Harris has probably got better information than I do, but let me give you one little example of the outrageous conduct that can happen there. A woman who had come from Iran was in Curtin and converted to Christianity. Her grandmother was an Armenian Christian and she was interested in Christianity from childhood. Converted to Christianity in Curtin. When they lifted the ban on baptisms in detention centres, she was baptised Christian. She began teaching against Islam in Curtin Detention Centre. A guy, another detainee, was in the habit of coming along and listening to her and making notes. And then on the 1st of August, I think 2002, he left Curtin and left Australia and went back to Iran voluntarily. A few weeks later, she got a message from Iran that she was in a lot of trouble because that guy turned out to be a Basiji informer. He'd informed the authorities that she was preaching against Islam, and the penalty for that, if you're a woman, is stoning to death. She went to the RRT with her claim. She pointed out that this problem had happened. 5 witnesses gave evidence before the tribunal member that this guy used to come along to the talks and would make notes, and that he left on the 1st of August 2002 and had gone back to Iran of his own accord. No one gave evidence to contradict that. The migration agent who ran the case gave the tribunal member the boat number and boat name of the guy, but when the decision came down, he decided as a fact that that guy didn't exist, that his existence had been fabricated to improve her claim for protection. He therefore rejected the claim for protection and next stop, Evan Prison for her. When the matter went to court and the records of the department were subpoenaed, the records in relation to him, they produced the records, and guess what? He existed, he'd been in Curtin, he left on the 1st of August 2002, voluntarily went back to Iran. So they were wrong, as a matter of fact, and the error, a simple error, could have been fixed if he'd troubled himself to ring the department and say, what have you got on this guy? They didn't even bother to do that. Astonishingly, the government then came to court and argued in those circumstances, even though the decision was wrong, as a matter of fact, it should not be overturned. Now, it was overturned, I'm happy to say, and she's now in Australia on a protection visa. I mention this for 2 reasons. First, because I think the RRT, which makes life and death decisions, is flawed, and it has got such a history now that I think it needs to be scrapped and replaced with a better system where there is at least a possibility of independence from government. Second point, things that have happened before can happen again. The fact that there are almost no arrivals now means that there is no political pressure for the same sort of outrages to be repeated as we have seen. But M38's case still stands as good law, and we can still, if we are inclined to, send people back to the certainty of death or torture. The sort of RRT decisions that we've had in the past can still happen again. Al-Kateb's case is still the law of this country and could happen again. Al-Kateb's case was one that Michelle touched on a moment ago. Can I ask for a show of hands, how many people know of Al-Kateb's case? You, the true believers, right at the heart of the refugee movement. Almost no one knows of Al-Kateb's case. Al-Kateb was an asylum seeker, came to Australia, asked for protection, didn't have a visa, has to be detained because the mandatory detention provisions say if you're a non-citizen, you don't have a visa, you have to be detained until you get a visa or until you're removed from Australia. Okay, so he's in detention, he applies for a visa, he's refused, and it's so unbearable in detention that he says, I'm not even going to appeal, I can't stand staying any longer, just send me out of the country. But they couldn't send him out of the country because he's a stateless Palestinian and they couldn't send him anywhere. So he's stuck. There are a couple of other people in the same problem. Instead of introducing a new visa category then, which they could have done, the last government argued all the way to the High Court that that man, innocent of any offence, not suspected of being a risk to the community, that he could remain in detention for the rest of his life. They argued that and they won. 4-3 on the 6th of August, I think, 2004. An infamous decision. It just said, as a matter of interpretation, that's what the Act says, as a matter of constitutional law, it is a valid law. That is a decision which still represents the law in Australia, and any government minded to act that way can act that way. The greatest threat in this country at the moment to asylum seekers is that more will arrive and the same dark creatures will be stirred, which will cause the government to react the way the last lot acted.